Welcome to the Brain Software Podcast. This is episode 233, emanating from the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada. I'm Chris Thompson, and today, Hypnosis and New Code NLP trainer Mike Mandel and I will be talking about defining hypnotic trance and other words that create change. So, in other words, keep listening.
Disclaimer, this is only a podcast with no physical structure, and as such, is emanating from an undisclosed location, which is somewhere other than a specific building southwest of the intersection of Bay Street and St. Mary Street in Toronto. Loochie.
Hey man, what's going down, Breach Clout? It's me, Scro, Dave Ambrose, the people's physicist, and I'm answering your science questions again. So here's a letter from the wrinkled old mailbag from Ludmilla Strange in Santa Monica. Dear Dr. Ambrose, why was Niels Bohr unable to become the world crokinole champion? You'd think that with his understanding of physics, he'd have been able to flick a crokinole checker without hurting his fingernail at all, and could have won at least a few minor tournaments before the World Championship match at the Dave Ellings Crokinole Arena in Keswick, Ontario. Well, Ludmilla, it's easy. Despite his so-called physics abilities, Niels Bohr was a dick. And that's the primary, secondary, and tertiary reason he couldn't cut it as a pro croke player. Well, let's put that back in my croke sack for now and ask, whatever happened to Niels Bohr that made him such a dick?
We are not witches!
So join me in welcoming the man who believes that Angus Young is the greatest all-time rock star, the MMHA Magic Brain Boy, the living Dracula of the backgammon table, and still the Keith Richards of hypnosis, Mike Mandel.
Yes, Christopher, still feeling great in the neck.
Fantastic.
I like being the Keith Richards of hypnosis ever since I watched that documentary.
Yeah.
Do you know who he had a collaboration with? Serious?
No, who?
Tom Waits. They became really good friends. They started to record some stuff together, lay down some tracks. And Tom Waits says that this semi-truck pulls up in front of the studio and it's full of Keith Richards guitars. So he could decide which he's going to use. Yeah, man.
Had a lot of guitars.
It's pretty good.
I opened up the back of the truck and the fender amp fell out. No, that didn't
Well,
work.
he's
Okay.
right. No. So let's get to our normal promotions, AOH in November, etc.
Yeah, you want to come to the Architecture of Hypnosis in
You should.
Toronto, don't you? Because it's awesome, and you're going to learn some cool stuff. You're going to hang out with us. You're going to make friends. You're going to become a hypnotic superstar in 5 days. Well, assuming you keep practicing after that, we're going to give you the seeds of superstardom. And you're going to love it. And it's going to sell out. So go to MikeMandelHypnosis.com. Check out the events page in our nav bar, and you can sign up too.
And join us
All
in
right.
Toronto. Now, we got our think tank words designed and spewed from the
And
Think
then-
Tank by
and
Savo
then we're going
Bukacek.
to get on to a really great discussion about words and how they influence people and what hypnosis is and how to even define it, how to talk to people about it. So, all right, Think Tank words. Wishbone.
First one is Wishbone,
Second one is
Enamel, and the third one is,
Radon.
now notice it's not Rodan, the flying monster from Japanese
It's radon.
monster movies. Radon.
Radioactive gas.
Yes, it is,
Radon.
which exists in the soil.
Yes, it does.
And people who stay indoors have to be careful.
Basements.
Basements
Basements can have radon.
and that.
Yeah.
So what about Wishbone? Let's start there.
Wishbone. When I think wishbone, I don't even think about the wishing and all that stuff. I think about the structure of a wishbone, and it always breaks in the same way, you know, in the
What's the sternum, isn't it? The sternum of a chicken.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so there's a weak arm, or if you think of it as like two branches, there's
Yeah.
a weak and a strong. So when there are options, usually one option is going to be better than another option. It's great to have options, but when there's only two,
Wondering where he's going
it
with
feels
this.
like a conundrum, and there's not a whole lot of flexibility here, but there's always a better and a worse option.
That's interesting. So did you do that as a kid, hook wishbones with your baby finger and pull them and whichever you get?
It'd always be very obvious which way it was going to break.
Yeah, and you had to
Yeah,
make sure that you
particularly.
engineered it.
Yeah.
That's the one you're holding on to. Yeah. Pretty much the same for me.
There you go.
We'll have a wishbone contest sometime because I think we both have the art down. It's sort of like arm wrestling, but way less demanding physically. And you'd win that one for sure.
Yeah.
So wishbone. Okay, so people wishing. I'm thinking also looking for something more in life. You get a 50-50 chance with this. and we'll just leave
Yeah,
leave the
you
bone
think
out of
you
it.
have a 50-50 chance, but it's definitely not 50-50 when you know what's underneath.
So it's sort of a determinism here.
you
So
go.
what about enamel?
Enamel. Well, I get the shiny, strong coating. It can be used for non-stick. It can be used to prevent things from penetrating through surfaces. It can be nice and shiny, easy to clean, protective, and beneath the surface
It's enamel.
is soft.
What is it?
That's
I mean,
a good question.
they put it on pots and pans, old ones,
Yeah.
and get enameled.
Yeah,
And
from a
it
chemical
must be physically bonded onto the metal.
Yes, it must be. I don't actually know what enamel.
I know enamel in your teeth,
Yeah.
because under that, you'd never know this, but under that, you've got the frickin',
The softness.
the pulp,
Yeah.
the dentin and the
Yes, I
pulp.
know.
And you don't want to be digging into the pulp, because that's that movie Marathon
Yeah,
Man.
it
He's saying,
protects you.
is it safe? And then he's shoving a freaking probe into a freshly cut nerve, as he said. Read it. It's a good book. Freaky movie, though. So enamel. Okay, so a tough protective coating.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be an ebullience to it, the sort of a shininess.
And you want to maintain it. Something that you want to protect.
Protect your
Because it
enamel.
protects you.
Yeah. Don't be snapping wishbones around anyone's teeth, is what we're basically saying.
There you go.
I think we got to the main point of this podcast already. Oh,
buddy.
radon. It's the ubiquitousness of radon, that it is everywhere, this radioactive gas just floating around. But it is such a low degree of radioactivity that it would take quite a lot of an exposure. And even then, it would probably take many, many years before it would have some sort of deleterious effect on your health.
Right. So if you're looking to make a change in the positive direction, you don't want the radon of change. You want the freaking like H-bomb of change.
Well, that's the kind of thinking that led us to Hiroshima. It's good, Chris. Good solution. I'm sure our Japanese listeners are going to be thrilled with that.
Yeah.
So let's go back to radon. Radon is like Rodan, because you can do it as a stepping stone. Rodan, the flying monster, was in Japanese monster movies. So we're back to Japan again,
Okay.
which is now resonating with your previous comment. So let's just let it all go and see what happens and how these come out. All right?
Okay.
So before we start, Noelle, one of our staff, asked a great question. And she said she saw this in a TED Talk. It's the one-word deletion.
Oh, yes. I remember her
One
mentioning this
word
in the talk. Yeah.
that you have to delete and never say it or use it again in your life. What
is
would the
it?
word be?
I don't remember.
What would it be?
If you're asking me?
If I'm asking you, and I am, yeah. There's a word you can never use again. Now, I know right away your brain is going to go to things like penis and stuff like that. And I refuse to stop saying penis.
It's probably not the right answer, but
Probably not.
my gut was maybe.
Ooh.
It can be a
It's sort of straddling the fence and never getting to.
I can see times where it may be useful. So what's the actual answer?
I don't think there is an actual answer. I think it's down to the individual. Maybe try.
Yeah. Well,
But then you do want to try things on for size, like a jacket or something.
yes, because you could use the word fit test in that case. But I don't think try is a word you want to eliminate unless you're eliminating it from the context of try and maybe you'll succeed.
You're right. Trying it on
Try
for
as an
size. Yeah.
experiment or-
Man, I don't know. I'm not going to ask Noelle what word she thought.
All right, so maybe if you are on YouTube watching this, or if you want to email
Tell us what
can
word
tell
you
us
would
what word
eliminate.
You would delete. Yeah, maybe you would delete the word delete.
Now, we got this from an email, and these are some of those interesting
this?
points.
Something new?
Yeah, this is now we're onto the whole. That was just the Noelle thing, just
Okay.
quickly, because she had a great point. I wanted to get it in there. That what word would you delete from usage? This email, the idea what a trance is. Remember we started talking about the concept of if you're a therapist, if you're a hypnotist, maybe a consulting hypnotist, if someone at an airport or, in the grocery store, what do you do for a living? I'm a hypnotist. Oh, what's that all about? I've had a billion questions. How are you going to explain what you do cogently?
Yeah, this came as we were planning this episode. I was thinking about how one of the things every hypnotist needs to be comfortable doing is answering the question, what do you do? Oh, you're a hypnotist. What is hypnosis? How does that work? And we got to talking about this, and literally the same day, we got an email from Robert, a retired Navy guy, awesome guy, and he was mentioning how he had Anthony Jacquin's Reality is Plastic playing in
great
Audible
book
in the background. He said, "I love this," and he emails me the particular quote. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I do
And
actually.
It was, or at least this is a piece of what's in Anthony's book, and I think this is great, that trance is when a person's subconscious mind is absorbed in one ongoing situation, and one's conscious mind is in deep rest, but still awake and observing passively in the background. Or in other words, the conscious mind's not particularly involved in what's going on.
It's not being participatory.
Conscious involvement.
It's a placeholder.
And absorption.
Right.
And that already happens naturally. Let's say we test that. Well, what about highway hypnosis, right? Well, our conscious mind is thinking about something that's going on. Our unconscious mind is absorbed in driving the car.
Okay.
Right? What about watching a movie?
Yep.
We are emotionally engaged in what's going on.
You know you're watching a movie.
Consciously, but yeah, we're not consciously evaluating it.
Right.
Oh, I wonder what the set is like, and I wonder where the cameras.
Wonder what the temperature was when he left the room.
Yeah, you're absorbed in, and you know consciously watching a movie, of course, but your conscious is sort of at rest while your unconscious is engaged in the content.
And this is really, to me, sounding like a re-echo of Raphael Rhodes' psychic relative exclusion, PRE. The idea that we have two minds, they're both always present to varying degrees, and normally your conscious mind is up front, just to give it a geographical location, and your unconscious, we say unconscious because we're primarily Ericksonians, it's in the background. And as you go into trance, the conscious mind recedes and the unconscious move forward, but it's never entirely gone. So it's sounding very much like that.
I want to challenge myself on I'm going to have you challenge me on something.
I'll freaking do that.
When I
challenge you all right.
When I related it, I should say, to highway hypnosis,
Yep.
that you're in the car and you're driving, is that a really good example of this model? Because the unconscious is the driver at that point. I'm not consciously steering and making those micro connections. My conscious might be involved in analyzing a problem. Maybe that's what's really going on, is that your conscious mind is thinking about your day or whatever the case is, but your unconscious is still there
driving the vehicle.
But it doesn't quite seem like it fits the model that we just described, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. So what do we make of that?
I'd say we just bypass it and edit it out.
All right.
We'll edit this whole thing out.
No, we won't.
But it is an interesting thing. And go on to the second part of this, that quote. Hypnosis is when.
Oh yeah. So the second part was trance being when the person's subconscious is absorbed, right? Hypnosis is when a trained hypnotist is guiding the person who is in trance. Okay, I can accept that because we don't differentiate in our minds between hypnosis and trance.
Simple model.
And really the only differentiation here that Anthony Jacquin is using in this book is that the hypnosis
Start again.
Hypnosis is happening when a hypnotist is guiding someone into so-called trance.
Right.
So that's fine if you want to call it trance when it's happening naturally or you do it to yourself, and you want to call it hypnosis when you do it to someone else.
I think that's a very Anthony Jacquin kind of thing, because it was Paul Norrish and Gabriella Pittman had studied with head hackers in Britain. So it was Anthony and Kev Sheldrake, who I've never met. They're not working together as far as I know right now. But back then they went to Britain and did their training. And when you and I showed up at the Toronto Hypnosis group that evening in the pub, and I was warned by an attendee, you be very careful how you word hypnosis and trance, because there's sticklers in the room and they'll nail you to. Say you're confusing with somebody who cares. I don't care. It's just a word.
Know that he wouldn't care to be such a
no, he's not that.
We did sit down and have conversations about this. It's no problem. It's just a word. From a process and state standpoint, we're thinking all in the same lines.
We're in the same. Yeah,
we're all on the same page.
We're on the same page with Anthony. Absolutely. And the guy's bang on with his stuff.
100%.
So it's just people can nail these. They can get overwhelmed with these descriptions. I don't mean anyone we're talking about now. I'm now moving to a different point. So anybody phoning Anthony Jacquin saying, boy, those guys are slagging you. Not at all. We're in agreement. Having said that, where I get annoyed is with the Google report, Google News updates come in every day for me on all the usual stuff, like war on Mars and Mandela effect and all the stuff everybody looks at on a daily basis. Yeah, just completely normal stuff. But one of the things that comes in is any mention of hypnosis in the news. Almost every day, I'll get a report from, in Shreveport, Louisiana, comedy hypnotist so-and-so is performing tonight at the such and such a room. And we interviewed him.
The Gus Grissom Cafe.
Right. They say we interviewed him for this report. And I'll click on it. And I know what they're going to say. Hypnosis is a relaxed state where the subconscious mind, it's like they've all got the same playbook. They're all saying exactly the same things as to what this is. So let's pursue this a little bit further. Someone on a plane next to you or a potential client says, what is hypnosis?
That's the question.
How will you answer? Now, I'm going to give you a few of my favorites first that I use.
Before Mike
No, I want to do it right
gives you
away.
his answers, think about this.
Yours.
If you do hypnosis and someone says to you, well, what exactly is this thing? Can you confidently and congruently answer the question without sounding like you're, well, sorta...
Or a pontificating deck. You don't want to sound like that either.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, let's hear some stuff.
Well, let's hear them. You're familiar with all these. These are the ones I've used for years. Hypnosis is a way of getting to the wealth of experience and resources in the unconscious mind. This is the unconscious model. Mm-hmm. So it's a way of getting to all the resources that are there and all the experiences to draw from them. Then there's the communication model. Hypnosis is extremely powerful and effective communication. There you go. So we're dealing with both conscious and unconscious.
And that leaves room for the person to inquire a bit more and for you to explain more.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Without having to give a soliloquy.
Nice. The quality of mercy is not strained. Droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place. No, anyway, I'm doing Portia's speech from Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare.
Right.
Why? Because I could.
Because you can.
Now, it is also the amplification model. I've heard Mandel use this one. Hypnosis is simply an amplifier of human experience.
Which I like.
Which means what to you?
Takes good stuff and makes it better, but can also take bad stuff.
Yeah, it will amplify anything. Yeah, yeah.
Bad stuff better.
You can do almost anything better in a hypnotic state.
If you think about it, a horror movie creating uncomfortable?
A what movie?
That doesn't even make sense. Discomfortable. I just
what kind of
said
movie
that out
did you
loud
say?
on a podcast. A horror movie.
Oh, horror.
You're watching.
I thought you said something else.
And bad stuff's happening, and people get freaked out, and then I don't want to go to bed. Leave the lights on tonight, Mom. That kind of stuff.
That's hypnosis.
Well, that's hypnosis, and that's making a problem worse, right? You're amplified because the emotions are involved.
Good point. Good point. Which is probably why people should not take LSD and then watch horror movies.
Probably be an issue.
Would you do that?
I would never take LSD.
But if you were, would you watch a horror movie?
I think I have no idea because I don't know how stupid I would become and whether I would say, oh, this sounds like a great idea. Maybe I would.
Then leap out a window and think you could fly or something. I don't know. Now, what about this one? Here's one I've used for years. Hypnosis is a state maintained by processes that create and maintain a state.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Thanks. It's nicely redundant, isn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Which makes sense because the people argue about, is it a state or is it a process? Is hypnosis something you're doing or is it a thing you're in?
And the answer is yes, it is both. Yeah.
And what is anger? It's a state. But it's also a state that must be maintained by doing the things that result in being angry.
Yeah.
So
the state maintained by doing the things that maintain the state. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is both. And this isn't something I'd definitely say to somebody on a plane or something if they ask me, but it is a way of unpacking it as well. So it is also, I've used the one, a focused state of awareness that may result in increased suggestibility. It may. Erickson said it doesn't necessarily. But when you say that, that's a great one. It's putting you, sir, in a focused state of awareness that may lead to increased suggestibility so you can change things in your life. Then they don't feel like they're completely overwhelmed by something. Now, what about connecting? You said about connecting hypnosis to things they already know.
I think
as an answer, right?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody in the medical community actually quite recently talking about hypnosis. And what she mentioned to me is, I'm aware of people that do mindfulness and people who do meditation and things like that. And how are those things related to hypnosis?
I'm interested in your answer.
So I, of course, explained that in our model of the world, meditation and also, meditation and mindfulness. I was somehow thinking self-hypnosis for a moment, but I'll come back to that later. Meditation, in my view, and in your view, I know, because we share the same view on this, is a form of self-hypnosis or a form of hypnosis. But not all hypnosis is meditation. So I explained all fish are not trout. All trout are fish, but not all fish are trout, right? So
correct.
Hypnosis is the larger basket in which you can put mindfulness, meditation, self-hypnosis, all these things. But you
That's
also
good.
have entertainment hypnosis in there. You also have therapeutic hypnosis, heterohypnosis, a hypnotist working with a client rather than someone hypnotizing themselves or running their own meditation session or mindfulness session, right?
Yeah, that's good. So there's all these things that people already know. Even reading a novel can be extremely hypnotic. If I read a good novel, the words disappear off the page. And I start to see the scene unfolding, imagining it the way I've imagined it. When I think back to a novel I've read, I don't think back to seeing words on a page.
Exactly.
I think back to the storyline itself. What are you looking at here? You're scanning
I'm
something.
looking for an email that I know we're going to be bringing up in a moment here. Here we go. Yeah, I found it, but that's fine.
All right. Do you want to bring it up now?
Sure. So where are we in the notes here?
Well, we also have stories and metaphors. Those are definitely hypnotic.
oh yeah, 100%. Okay. So I'm ready for the-
Interesting conversations. When you're in an especially interesting conversation, you'll go into a trance state to process it. In fact, the greatest orators, the greatest speakers are creating hypnotic states in the audience. I used to do it on purpose, but
Yeah.
it's
There's
a common thing.
There's a part of me that feels a lot of people would be comfortable if they understand that hypnosis isn't actually anything special or unique.
Right.
We're doing it all the time. A lot of our own beliefs are manifestations of prior hypnosis events in our lives where we've gone on to believe something and we adopt it as though it's true. And now we're operating in this perpetual post-hypnotic suggestion world, right?
Yes,
All these kinds of
absolutely.
things like Martians are thieves. Well, how do you go on to believe that? Something emotionally triggered it. You
Yeah,
can call
or
that
it's an attribution
hypnosis.
from someone else told you that all the time you were growing up. You picked it up
Exactly.
from them.
So, well, how do you use that to your advantage then, Chris and Mike? Well, if you can get somebody into this hypnotic state where they're focused on things and resources are available to them and their conscious interference is somewhat offline, as per Anthony Jacquin's definition, I really
Right.
like that, you can help people access a lot of information, a lot of resources, a lot of possibilities, a lot of imagination, a lot of guided imagery, whatever you want to do, exercises, imagination, and physically moving and breathing differently and installing suggestions that they will accept as true.
Exactly. That's all very well put. I have nothing to add to it.
All right.
In fact, I sort of zoned out
Well,
as you
that's
were
it.
saying
I
it.
guess
Just
so.
gun. Done. I said gun.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Just to instantly go into firearms for some reason. And there's no reason whatsoever. Now,
But I do think it would be useful if somebody you can tell is favorably thinking about mindfulness and meditation, and they ask you about hypnosis, tell them it's very similar in many ways to mindfulness and meditation.
oh, for sure. And especially you look at things like TM, where Maharishi Mahesh Yogi brought to, the Western world around the time of the Beatles and all the early albums they did. And the whole point of TM is you do it twice a day for 20 minutes, if I'm correct. And you're given your mantra, which is a secret. And it's a word that you're saying over and over and over. And that's how you meditate with it. You're just bringing your mind back to the word. If it wanders, just keep coming back every time you're breathing. So again, it's tied to breathing, which is again tied to chain of excellence, John Grinder, changing your state through breathing, your physiology. Everything is going to change. Your blood pressure is going to drop. And it's hypnotic. That repetition of the word. And the proof of it is, I read a book, the guy said, you don't have to do TM. He said, just use the word one. Every time you exhale with your eyes shut, comfortable, just hear the word one in your mind. Just keep doing it. That's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
What word would you use?
One. I would use the word win.
Nice.
Win. I like that.
He's a winner,
There you
folks.
go.
Now, let's get on to this. I want you to talk about assumicidal.
Oh yeah. Well, when we talked about this podcast, we were thinking about the idea of how words have consequences.
They do.
right? And also silence or lack of words have consequences. So that's just the overall theme here. This isn't specifically fit into it exactly, but we'll get there. So a good friend of mine named Craig Couch, he has an email list and I'm on it. So I'm going to read you the whole email, which I just think is awesome.
Okay.
He says, in the marketing world, attribution is something that must be tracked closely. Dedicating ad spend and blindly hoping it converts is a quick way to burn cash. Knowing where the sales are coming from is a matter of analyzing data. Living in the business environment makes it easy to assume it will also work in relationships. Studying data, outcomes, is a long way from the reality of someone's motives. Trying to get into someone else's head to figure out why they did or didn't do something is a fundamental attribution error. Coming to conclusions with your guesses is, and wait for this word, assumicide. Pro tip. If you think someone is being malicious or careless, ask them directly. Say something like, I get the impression that you were late to the meeting because you don't see it as important. Is that true? Saying nothing and resenting them is chicken shit.
Oh, brilliant. Can we say that? Can we
can say
Can
that.
we use
That's
the word
okay.
nothing? Did I?
We rarely say words like that.
No, we don't
Since
say
I'm
them.
Quoting Craig's wonderfully written email.
Brilliantly
and
written.
I replied to him and said, loved that email.
Excellent email.
Yeah.
Also, Chris, you know what you said, malice and so on. My wife has a great saying. She does not claim it's hers, but she said sometimes we attribute malice to mere ignorance.
Oh,
So someone can be doing something purely out of not knowing, and they say, "Oh, he's doing that on purpose." We've got to be very careful about assigning malice when it may not be the
we
case.
talked about this a bit in the last podcast episode, but we're not, as hypnotists and humans, we are not freaking mind readers. So rather than staying silent, because silence has an effect, right? Words have consequences, and lack of words have consequences. Ask people for their actual information. Ask people for the information that you know.
Brilliant. In fact, you know what they said about the whole thing about words having an effect. I might have told you this. Heather and I were at the Pantages Theatre in Toronto, beautiful theater. We're in this lobby area, and everyone was sort of being funneled on the break, jammed in pretty tight. I think it was the Pantages. And there was a fairly big guy, 40s, standing there ahead of us, and he was about 3 people ahead. And all of a sudden, the crowd couldn't move, and people were trying to get up the stairs. This guy yells, "Fire!
Oh, funny,
Fire!
huh?
We're all going to die!" He yells this and then bursts out laughing. Heather said, "Let it go." If I could have gotten to him, I would have neck cranked, taken him to the ground, and made sure that he was freaking charged for that. He does it as a joke. It's ignorance. It's not malicious. It's not trying to kill anyone.
Because he hadn't
But
thought
people who
forward.
panic, yelling fire, can you imagine the absolute lunacy of doing that? It infuriated me. And it's that thing, you say, you're right to swing your fist. When you hear the clever way I'm wording this.
Okay.
Your right to swing your fist ends where the other person's nose begins.
Yes,
Okay.
very good.
And they say freedom of speech is the right to yell. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You have to rein it in, right? So here's my line. Freedom of speech is the right to yell theater at a crowded fire. That's freaking brilliant. I don't know if anyone else ever came up with that, but I think it's original.
With respect to Craig's email, and really it underscores the idea that you can't mind read and you should be willing to ask people. So we want to talk about how you can clarify using language. So how you can use words to clarify what someone else means and get more information out of them in a resourceful and helpful way without being a dick, because you certainly don't want to come across as a dick. Like, that's a really stupid thing you said. Tell me what you really mean.
Yeah. So again, we're looking for specificity. Marilyn Vosavant, who was the smartest human in the world at one point, I don't know if she still is, I think some Vietnamese boy who's smarter now, but she talked about precision communication.
Yeah.
And English is noteworthy because when you add technical terms, there's about 1 million words. And it's actually, you got a red flag.
I got a red
ready.
flag. No, it's okay. I'll swing it in a moment.
You're a bastard.
Yeah,
What are you
come
doing?
on. I'll get to it.
Paternage. Now my hands are in the air and I don't know why I'm doing mirroring hands on myself. So she said, you can say more things in more ways in English than in any other language. We have this remarkably rich language. We need to apply it with specificity. So instead of mind reading, now go ahead.
Perfect timing. Okay, that's exactly why. So the reason I held this up is just to make
You get
sure.
a little closer to my eye with a pointed end on that.
Just have a
Like,
pointy
it
end.
looks this big. You got so close to my
All right,
pupil.
I got another email that I really thought fit in well with this, and I want to read that one briefly. And then they fit together hand in glove, perfect, and we can talk all about how we can help.
All right, let's do that.
This is a different sort of situation. This isn't one of these mind reading situations. This is, we'll call him Peter. His name is not Peter, but I'm going to say Peter sent me this email, and he said that this was his biggest problem right now. And I'll just read it, and you'll see how it's
all right.
It's a different problem, but the same idea, same chain. He says, this is going to sound weird. We'll be the judges of that.
The little asides are very good. That's very good.
As other people talk in a work environment, I find it really hard to understand what on earth they are on about. It's just words. Some people ramble all over the place. They don't structure what they're saying, and it stresses me out because it seems like people make decisions, then say something contradictory, and then I'm unclear which of the 10 things are the ones that they've decided on. Maybe my mind is mush, probably not. Maybe some people are just chaotic. Is that something? And then he signs it.
Good question. Is he a Brit?
I assume so.
Sounds
just
like a
based
Brit
on
to
the
me.
style of writing, but
Yeah.
I can't tell because it's just coming from a Gmail.
As soon as you say, what are they on about?
What are
That's
they-
so
yeah, that is
freaking
very
English.
British.
Yeah.
And it's a really good point. So we have the situation where some people maybe mind read or stay silent and are resentful, and they commit a suicide.
Right.
I love that word, Craig, I love it. A suicide. Other people are dealing with lack of clarity or even contradictory information. Oh yeah, we're gonna go to the mall today, but I guess we can't after all because of this. So yeah, okay, I'll see you there.
This is what Noelle was talking to me about,
Okay.
one of our staff, in a message I got this morning. She sent it to me last night. It was a verbal message. It was an audio message, but she's talked about sometimes working with people. They're giving the indicators of being in a deep trance or not, and they give her key information. She's working with it. And then they're sort of coming back saying, why are you doing that? She said, well, that's what you just told me. Did I said that? Well, it's true, but I don't remember saying it. It's trying to nail Jello to a wall sometimes. It really is.
Yeah.
I can sense his frustration here.
Well, this is it. So I thought it would be a fruitful discussion on how to avoid making assumptions, and then instead of that, how to use language to ask clarifying questions. Because when people are being vague about requirements on a project at work or whatever the case may be, or whether they sound like they're flip-flopping and you don't actually know what the heck they want, how do you deal with that?
Cut the cord.
Well,
I'm 70, buddy.
for
I'm not
you,
going to
it's
deal with
not
that
good.
crap. It's just, you're out of my life.
No, like I have a colleague that I must work with, and I need to get along in a productive way. Or I have a boss that is genuinely a good person. I want to escalate.
But you can't cut the cord because you work with him or for him. Would you snip the foreskin instead? Just throwing the pattern interrupt. Now listen, I know you can't change, the way you change other people is by changing your own behavior. And this is NLP
This is it,
101.
yeah.
So
Theater of the mind.
theater of the mind, you might want to attempt different forms of communication, see what results you get and start to log it. But sometimes you will, as he has pointed out so brilliantly, encounter people who are just so incredibly chaotic in their speech. It's I have a relative who talks like a scattergun, like a shotgun.
Yeah.
Just as all these shells and bullets and deer shot in the air. And that reminds me of that. Now we're on that top. There's no logical continuation.
Yeah.
And he said to me once, well, I'm not a linear thinker. I said, yes, it's called being illogical and incapable of rational thought, because thoughts should lead to each other if you want to understand them.
Conversation that I had with someone in my life that involved physics and engineering, and things had to be done a certain way.
Can you say their actual name?
No, I can't. Even though I know better. I know how systems work. And when you tell me I must test something in a certain way because that's what the person at the store told you, and I know that there's an easier way to do it, oh, it drives me nuts. Okay.
Oh, it drives me nuts too.
But
it drives me insane, Chris.
I want to propose, Ben, two tools that can be used together.
Rubbing my eyes feels better.
Yeah.
There we are.
Let's talk about this. So, first of all, imagine a scenario where someone's just going on in an incoherent way.
Okay.
But it doesn't really matter. Is it affecting your life? Is the first
I'd let
question,
it go.
right? If it's just a family member that you're not that close to and you have to hang out for an hour and put up with it, you're not going to even get involved. So maybe the right answer is just sit back and let it happen because it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect your life. But if it is affecting you in a relationship that matters, whether it be work, etc.,
Right.
you do have to deal with it. So here is where now I want to offer two possibilities.
Okay.
And then let's go from there. So possibility number one, you can just jump right into asking clarifying questions.
Okay.
And the meta model is a really good way of doing this.
Of course.
Right? And meta model is just language that clarifies language. You can ask simple things like, where specifically should we meet? Using the word specifically is a good one.
Yeah.
And
How do
always
you know
mark it-
that is true?
How specifically do you know that's true? Or if they're telling you, I need the report done by Friday. Well, when specifically on Friday? What specifically needs to be in that report? What specifically are the outcomes that you need to decide upon?
Right.
To get the information, you just need to push, and using the word specifically can help a lot.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other thing I want to say, and then I'll turn it over to you for more conversation on this, is sometimes people they're motor mouth like I am right now. Just they're not really listening, so you don't have a chance to get in and ask the specificity.
Okay.
In which case, I want to suggest that you use yes sets and compliance sets to reset and get some attention.
Clever.
So you need this done by Friday. Right. and it's a report and you want me to put on your desk. Yes, that's right. Third question, whatever. And this is important to you, so that's why I'm going to get it done. Right. I need you to stop here for a second. I need you to give me 2 minutes of your time. Okay. And I need to ask you a question about it. Something like that. It's not really a compliance set, I suppose, in that manner, but you get the idea. That
I do.
You're going to get them.
You're apprehending their attention first. Remember Richard Bandler when he'd be talking, the person's gone motor mouth and their eyes are back and forth and they're visualizing and they're talking about all the pictures they're seeing. He'd wave his hands and knock the pictures out of the air.
Yeah, that's a great way. Basically, either a yes set and compliance set or a pattern interrupt.
Well, remember Melissa goes, stop.
Yeah, stop. When, and then
what is the specific? Yeah, that's brilliant.
That's a great idea too. So a pattern interrupt that's not dickish,
which like,
hey, I know we got to, yes, we're going to get the report done on time. And yes, and is a great one too.
Yeah.
I have a series of small questions I need your committed answers to.
Right.
Is that okay?
And now you've refocused the person.
You to answer these questions so that I can get the job done.
This is very clever stuff, Chris. And I will end that segment, and you'll see why in a second, by saying, and when you've done this and you've clarified and brought some sort of life through the chaos, some sort of sanity away from people like just wandering around with weird, dentures and wearing freaking lunacy jackets. What you want to do then, I recommend, is recap. Okay, so what I've heard you say is we're doing this. So Friday at 9, recap. So that make sure that he is agreeing with or she with all your understanding.
Awesome at that on our team?
Me?
Timothy.
Oh, yeah.
Timothy September is the king of, okay, what I heard you say is, and then he recaps it all very specifically. And
yes.
It's very clear.
And then he says, yes, exactly, yes, right afterwards.
Exactly. Then there's an understood agreement between the two of you on what things are.
Okay.
So asking clarifying questions is really important, right?
Yeah.
And express genuine interest. And you're waving the red flag because we got to move on to another topic.
Oh, you can't imagine why I'm waving the red flag. You're close, but not even. We are about 15% through the material.
Oh my goodness.
So we got to keep moving. We just turned this into Jack the Frickin'
into a two-parter. If it does, it does. Because we can make that decision, can't we?
We can do whatever we like. Timothy Leary said, you can be anything this time around. So let's just go. Let's talk about conversation power for everybody. You want to be a better communicator? Here's a great thing to do. Just some simple things to communicate better. And it's funny because I heard this on the radio today. It was actually a Scottish minister, Alistair Begg, talking about, he said his father drilled into him, when you're having a conversation, make eye contact with the person so they know you're listening.
Yes, eye contact, not,
Yeah, if you turn your back and go and start opening a drawer or something, that's a terrible thing. It tells the other person that they're not significant and not important, or they're boring you to death. So make eye contact for your communications. Not like Hannibal Lecter, not without blinking, not staring and, running a slim knife through your hand or something, making a more, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean? Make eye contact.
Find that if you're starting a conversation and there isn't eye contact, do you ever just find a natural point to pause, wait, draws the curiosity, person looks, and then you make eye contact and continue?
Yes, stopping is great because it gets their attention again. Yeah. Also, don't turn your back when someone is speaking. I just mentioned that. But it just makes the person, of course. No Ken Sweatman stories or unrequested sagas. I told you before that at our church, a guy came up, started telling me about a TV show he'd seen the night before, and I thought he was just mentioning it. And he went on, I just wanted to get over to the food table, and I had my feet turned away. He didn't pick up on any of the cues, kept turning, standing in front of me. He told me a 30-minute TV show in real time. And then he went outdoors and there was a car there and it was I didn't even know. Why are you even telling me this?
Yeah.
So now I wouldn't put up with it. I would just give him like a mild smack to the testicles or something. It's a great pattern interrupt. But he's a nice guy, but it didn't pick up on it. So keep your stories tight. Don't make them too long.
I've gotten a lot better at
You're
that.
really good at it now. You're really good.
Find all these little angles to deviate and then finally return the rat holes, the tangents, whatever you want to call them.
Yes.
But I've gotten pretty good at doing this. Now, I see the next point.
You used to be extremely tangential with your...
Tangent.
Now look, learn to listen without interrupting. That's important too.
We're not very good at it with each other, I suppose.
What?
No, we are. I want to talk about this because learn to listen without interrupting. We have this couple that are family friends, really good family friends, and so they come over every once in a while and we hang out. And the husband is freaking hilarious. He's so animated. And he's so funny, and he makes everybody laugh.
Okay.
But he's one of these guys, he needs to be the one always telling the stories.
Okay.
Anyone else telling a story gets immediately interrupted. And I don't even.
And then it brings the one he wanted to tell.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his stories are funny, and I'll grant that, but no one else can tell stories. Now, he doesn't realize he does this.
Right. Most people don't. They'd be horrified if they knew.
He's a super nice guy. He's a very caring person.
Except he's inattentive, narcissistic, and maybe a bastard.
He's not a narcissist or anything like that.
You're making everything about him, though. It's
great.
like Heather and I know a guy like that. Him and his wife, nice couple. We were hanging around with them a bit, and then they moved. But the interesting thing was, he was like that. Anything you would say to him, he would never pick up on anything you said. Not like, oh, Louisiana, when were you there? Nothing. It's, well, I had a friend. And then right away, he just uses a bit from what you said and tells his own story. Everything turns into his story with zero questions about what you're saying. Guys, if you want to show interest, ask people questions.
And that's what this guy's not good at. He doesn't realize it. I didn't really have the heart to tell him directly this, but it is. I don't think it's a problem in every setting. I think it's only he's faking it right now.
No, I just realized we've been 42 minutes.
Okay, we'll wrap this up pretty quickly then. We'll just
let's go through these.
We're going to turn this into a two-parter.
I don't know if we are or not.
Well, we don't know, but I'm going to finish my point here.
Okay, go ahead.
Because this is what I said to him. So I had started, swear, only 10 seconds in. No chance to Sweatman anything.
Yeah.
Immediately, he starts going into his version. I waited for him to finish, and I said, I wonder if I can move on to the next 15 seconds of my story.
Nice. That's good. That's good. That's good. Now, it made the point. This is, don't forget, you can always use mine as well, where you say, just a minute. Before we go into the second 30-minute segment, is this going somewhere that I will find interesting?
Well, I didn't want to insult what he was saying.
30-minute segment. That's a 30-minute. Yeah.
I used it. I modified the 30
I thought it might be there. Yeah.
You know, I love being something to the effect of, I wonder if I can get to the next 15 seconds of my story.
It tells me interrupted.
I love telling my story in 15-second increments.
That's good too. That's good too. That might be too subtle for some dicks though. So, don't be an active listener. Guys, do not be an active listener. I told before, we were at a church and it was a husband and wife thing and they were going to show all this communication from people who are ill-equipped to teach it. Yeah. And I sat there just going, this is dickish. And he said, well, they bring a couple up to the front who have a problem and they come up and sit down. And
the active listener.
And he says, so tells the woman to explain what the problem is. She does. And then he gets the husband to rephrase everything. Okay, so what you're saying is, and he says something totally different. No, but the other way. The woman was saying
your
to him.
Laundry on your side of the bed, and it pisses me off because I like to have a clean house.
It just, everything he wanted to convey what he was worried about was upsetting him. And the coach kept rephrasing everything.
You're saying that I need to be more careful with how I handle.
Yeah, what I hear you saying, and it isn't that. Use their words to build rapport. Yeah. Don't freaking interpret. And by the end of the thing, they were sitting on opposite sides of the room. He brought this all in the open and infuriated the guy by just rephrasing everything he said and teaching her to do that. So if you want to undermine someone's communication and be a dick, which we don't want you to do, but if you do and you want to do it well, just rephrase everything they're saying. And it's a terrible situation. Now, don't be an active listener. Build rapport bridges with other people using their language. Use their freaking language.
You can also, one tip here is that you can pick a word that they say and just repeat it. It's their exact word. So Mike said, oh, you don't want to rephrase what they say. Rephrase.
That's it. That's
it.
It
invites them to say more without anything to resist. They go, yeah, because when you rephrase things, it changes the meaning, and that just really irritates people.
And that's perfect timing, Chris, because we are 45 minutes in. And you're going to now give us the empowering question. We're going to split this into another podcast. There's a lot to do here.
I have to, because there's actually a lot, I think, that we're coming up with behind the scenes.
And I have to apologize to that guy, Marin, because I told him it was going to be in 2:33. His question is going to be in 2:34 now.
All right. You sure?
But yeah, because we can do whatever we want.
That's right. Okay. Well.
So, give us the empowering question, Chris.
Let's go to it. So, empowering question for episode 233.
I like the way you always do that.
What changes will you make in your own words today and tomorrow? And while you're at it, what word whiskers will you remove now?
The the right.
Like sort of
like and
and
that. The MetaFive.
All right, give us a closing metaphor,
The,
Mike.
the MetaFive. Once upon a time, there was a guy, and when he talked, he did a lot of dickish things with his words and his voice and everything, and then he had no friends. So he listened to this podcast, and then everything was okay again. So thanks all of you for tuning in. This has been Brain Software. I'm Mike Mandel. This is Chris Thompson. Take us out, Chris.
Thanks again, and
Good night!